Welcome back to the channel, welcome back. Thanks a lot for your support and thanks a lot for the 100 plus subscribers. Now in this episode I want to talk about the McLaren Mp4 the car that made Mika Hakkinen world champion at the end of the season. And this car was the brainchild of Adrian Newey. Adrian Newey, who was instrumental for Williams' success. He won 1992, 93, 94, 96 Constructors World Championship with Williams, and then he had a massive argument with Patrick Head. Newey wanted a bit more control, more involvement in the team, but Patrick Head and Williams had none of it. So Ron Dennis called Newey and said, "Hey, do you want to come to McLaren and make McLaren great again?" And he said yes, and the rest is history. McLaren showed really good pace at the end of the 1997 season, winning the last race at Jerez in obviously difficult circumstances. They were catching damaged Williams. If you remember the lap before, a few laps before, Villeneuve and Schumacher crashed, and Villeneuve's side pod was already damaged. But still, a win is a win, and a 1-2 is a 1-2. So good progress there. But when this car showed up in 1998, they were miles ahead of everybody. I remember walking up to see the Australian Grand Prix, and the race was over within 20 laps. The gap was so big. This car was like 7/10 or maybe 1 second faster than the other rivals. And Mika Hakkinen won that race, but if I remember correctly, I think David Coulthard was winning in the closing stages, but he decided to pull over and let Hakkinen through and honor a gentleman's agreement, which said that whoever was first in after the first lap will win the race. Now imagine Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton doing that with their teammates today, or even Schumacher. I don't think that, or Fernando Alonso for that matter. I don't think that would have happened. And also you can see here a famous three-pointed star, which is Mercedes. The McLaren, they were called the Silver Arrows. Of course, not the original ones. They sort of look silver because of the sponsors. And this dark shade of gray was the color scheme of their new sponsor, which was West, a tobacco company. Of course, West, the name is not present here on this car because tobacco was then banned all across Europe, so you were not allowed to advertise it. Maybe in certain locations you were. So that's why serious collectors, what they do is they strip this and they just put West tobacco livery. Now, if I remember correctly, McLaren used an ingenious scheme here. At some races, they would put David or Mika at the side of the car, and I thought that looked pretty cool. Now, obviously, I'm not a serious collector, so I'm gonna leave my cars like that. I'm just afraid I'm gonna damage them even more. Coming back to the tires, you can see here the introductions of these grooves. You have 4 at the back and 3 at the front. Now, this was done by the FIA. FIA was tired of slicks in a bit of mixing up performance and making up some really good stuff. There were new regulations. The cars were a bit narrower compared to 1997, and these regulations will stay in place for another 10 years, I think, up until 2009 when they changed back the slicks. But what a era that was! I think it was pretty great. Especially the end of the 90s and the start of the 2000s, where multiple teams were competing. And again, at the end of the era, if you guys remember when there was a lot of team, there were a lot of team in the mix, and Formula One was so attractive to manufacturers. At some point, we had 9 manufacturers in competing in F1. That was those were the golden days. But now we have a completely different sport. Coming back to the car itself, as you can see, this is made by Minichamps, but here up at the top you have Paul Modesart, so this means that this is an older model before the transition. And looking at the age of this car, everything has preserved quite nicely. I think the owner, I bought this one for £20, so the owner told me that this is original release, so he had it for about 15 years, which is maybe even more, maybe 20 years. Considering its age, this car looks pretty darn good. The wheels, they do move themselves. As you can see, the driver and the helmet, they are painted quite nicely. Even on the even on the Minichamps, on the small one, the 1-43, the details are quite okay. Now this car won, if I'm not mistaken, 8 races and had 9 poles with Mika Hakkinen alone. I think Coulthard won another couple of races and Schumacher won 6 races. So there you have it, pretty dominant, but he was often unreliable. So sometimes it's it just retired by itself. Now Mika Hakkinen had a successful F1 career. He never liked it. I think he went into an interview saying that the pressure was too much. He didn't like media days. Oh, I don't know, something happens with these Finns. Kimi Räikkönen was the same. So this is it. This is the 1998 Mp4-13. Do you have this car in your collection? If you have, drop me a comment in the comment section. And thanks a lot for your support. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.